Well, Chris, this is the greatest episode I've ever had because I didn't even know we had started already. So thank you so much for being here. I will answer your question, but I would love to introduce you, though, just so I can make sure that I let everybody know. Welcome back to the Lost and Found podcast. This is your host, Amanda. I am so excited to be here. It's our first time in studio at Lagos Creative here in Nashville, Tennessee. I kind of feel like I'm living out a surreal dream right now, but this is so exciting, and I can't wait to introduce you. So, Chris, please give him a moment while I let everybody know who you are. So we have invited Chris Weinberg here into the studio. He is the founder and CEO of Well Coach Consulting. He specializes in performance and business coaching for creative and forward-thinking companies. He has over 20 years of experience working with various CEOs, CFOs, and other top-performing professionals to help them focus on effective leadership skills and sustainable operating practices. And he helps people by driving their focus on people, sales, profit, and self. He also has his very own podcast as well, which you can also listen to. And I can't wait to discuss that with you. So, Chris, thank you so much for being here today.
I'm tickled to be here and glad I'm honored to be the first one in studio for you. So this is good.
I know it's very exciting. Yeah. And our mutual friend Justin introduced us and, said, you have to meet Chris. He knows so many great people in town. Like, he could probably tell you another person that would be a great guest. So I'm so excited to just pick your brain and learn all about you and what you're working on in the world to make it a better place.
Well, let's do it.
Yeah. Well, you had originally asked me, how did I get started in podcasting? And so I talk about this on my show every now and then. But one of the very first episodes, I kind of go through my career path and what it is that I did. And that in 2022, I ended up leaving my previous life. So I spent about 12 years as an intelligence analyst for various federal agencies. And in 2022, I kind of had an epiphany of like, I'm hitting a wall. Personally, professionally, I wasn't living the life that I thought I would be living at that point. I was in my early 30s. I thought there's too many coincidental things that are happening that they can't not have meaning, right? I can't keep running into these professional problems or having my work get tarnished or my family feel like it's falling apart, and I can't be in both places at once. And I kind of had to make a decision. Do I care about giving away my life and career to an agency that could not really care less about me since I'm a number, right? Like, there was 37,000 employees at that time. So do I do that, or do I start all over but help my family stabilize and get to a better place? And I feel like I can be closer with them because I left them for 12 years. I've missed a lot. How do I get that time back? And the truth is, you never will. So I had to make that decision. And when I decided to move back to Nashville, I realized, okay, I've got a new job and my family life is much better, but I still don't feel fulfilled. Why is that? And so I thought a lot of it had to do with the grief of giving up my old identity, giving up who I used to think that I was as an analyst and valuing so much of that as my core. And it's kind of like, okay, I had to have the realization that I'm worth more than just a job, right? And that reinvention is actually an important part of learning how to grow and how to be a better person or a better business owner or a better entrepreneur, better artist, anything like that. And so I thought, okay, who am I going to learn from? And every time I tried to find someone in the self-development space, they were already professionals or they had already been doing it for 10 plus years. So they weren't technically struggling anymore. Like, they were already established. And so most of whatever content they were sharing wasn't as vulnerable as I thought it could be. I wasn't relating to it. Like, it was helpful tips, like do these 5 steps, build this morning routine, build this nighttime routine, whatever. But it wasn't like, this was the worst day of my life and this is how I figured out how to fix it. Because I kept feeling like I was living in that cycle. And I was like, all right, well, if I can't find the community I want to be a part of, I need to create it. And so I did. And so I just turned on my microphone and my computer laptop one day. It was kind of like, all right, we're going to say whatever comes to mind and kind of explain who you are and what you're trying to do and see what happens. And if people want to follow along, they can, and hopefully it'll be helpful. And so I actually started the show as What Now, a podcast for the Lost and Found. And then Justin advised me it might be a little bit too long of a title. Let's get to the core of what it is that you're trying to do. And so we dropped it to just the Lost and Found podcast. And then the mission is essentially like, I want to spend the rest of my life trying to bridge the gap between the two, between the lost and the found, so that people who feel like this, the way I do right now in my life, they can meet people like you, the found, that I'm bringing on the show to help them figure out, okay, what experiences are they sharing from their life that I can take and resonate with me, so that way I can either avoid those mistakes or feel encouraged by their mistakes because we did the exact same thing. And now I know, oh, okay, he messed up and survived and made himself better. I can do exactly what Chris just did and go, okay, I'll be okay. My business failed. I'm not coming up with the right idea. I'm hiring the wrong people, or I'm, not figuring out how to get my employees to work together to be successful. What am I doing wrong? How do I fix this? Because I don't want to keep failing. And so that's kind of why I wanted to bring you on, is because you specialize in helping people analyze what it is that's going on in their business. It doesn't matter what they're selling, but the root of how to live that kind of life as a successful entrepreneur can be repeatable, but you have to actually care about what those pillars are.
Right.
And so that's kind of why I wanted to talk to you.
Great.
So that's the long version.
Well, that's a good version.
Yeah.
That's so cool. You're putting yourself, you're forcing yourself into proximity approach of others, and that's wise.
Well, and I've been honest on the show too that like this is selfish. Like yes, it is a virtual digital diary that I'm letting people listen to or read every week, but I want to get better, and I want to figure out how to live in a world where I feel more confident and brave and okay with the fact that I'm not where I want to be, and that you can still move forward. Right? Moving forward is still a direction. Moving forward is still progress, even if it's really just small increments at a time. That's what matters. So I wanted to share those experiences with anybody that might be feeling that kind of way as well.
Awesome.
So I've introduced myself, but please introduce yourself to the listeners. Anything you'd like to share about your experience, and like, how did you get into business consulting as what seems to be your purpose and what you are succeeding at? Like,
well, thank you. Very early on, I had an interest in being a teacher very early on in life, but I also had an interest in having money.
Yeah.
And those two things often don't pair up too well together. So I chose a business route. My background, my family was in the restaurant business. So I had my sights set on, I'm going to own a restaurant one day. Like that's when I was early in life, that was my sight into business. And so out of college, that's what I did. And I went to, at the time back there, the two best companies in the world to go learn from, believe it or not, were TGI Fridays and Marriott.
Oh my
You're
goodness.
too young to remember that, but way back in the day, Fridays was the bomb. It was all before all these chef-driven restaurants existed. All the chefs were there, right? So Scratch Kitchen, all the kind of things. Anyway, I got there. Philadelphia is where I landed.
Yeah.
And grew up. I had the best mentors in the world, and I learned business there. And I grew up in that organization pretty quick. And then fast forward, I got the itch to do my own thing. I was able to do that. Come back down to North Carolina and started my own business there. And then I met a mentor who was super successful and brought me into a very small company, and we took it public and grew it all over the country. So I got a lot of my chops there. That learning curve was vertical for me in lots of ways. Then I started having kids, and I wanted to get off the road because I traveled all the time, which I loved, but it wasn't conducive to raising kids. And that's where I started my consulting practice. And because I had this skill set now of taking something small and expanding it. The reps were the same. It didn't matter what we were selling, but it started basically in hospitality. So emerging chain restaurants, emerging chain hotels, that kind of thing. And then it just started morphing into other areas, other businesses, because the backbone of what I practice on, a couple of the backbones are Ken Blanchard, who wrote The 1 Minute Manager, and he's a management guru, been around since the 80s. He's great. And then the DISC profile system. Those became two of my really go-to tools in this other company that I grew and built. So those were transferable into anything. And so, that's 25 years into it now. So that's how I got there. So now as a coach, I'm able to have that teacher flex, but there's a business to it. So those two things collide really well for me.
No, I love that because I like that, and that gives me hope because you didn't actually give up being a teacher. It's just how you decide the medium with which you teach people changed. Right. You're just not in a traditional classroom. So for me, like having to leave intelligence and strategy and analytics, like I can now, instead of analyzing a crime that might be happening, now I can actually focus on like human behavior and how data that I could collect through the podcast theoretically could help other people achieve what they need to
You
achieve.
have an amazing transferable skill set. You just got to figure out how to use it.
Figure out how to apply it.
But
I'm
you have a great transferable skill set. So your future is going to be fine.
No, it will. And I think the most important part, it sounds like you found a way to still have fun throughout your career transitions or like working at different places.
Yeah.
You immersed yourself enough to where you could learn what you needed to learn, but you were having a good time at the same time.
Yeah.
Like despite the flexibility there.
Yeah. The fun comes and goes, right? When you're an entrepreneur, the highs are higher and the lows are lower. So you're always, I don't know if chasing is the right word, but always seeking, fun should be a byproduct of what you're doing at some point.
Yeah.
Right. Or at least fulfilled or happy or that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about a little about those, the 4 silos that you have. And you bring this up on your podcast as well. And there's a wealth of information on your blog and on your website. But you talk about the 4 that we discussed: the people, sales, profit, and self.
Yes.
So what purpose does each of those serve? And why should a CEO or a business owner that works with you, why should they care about those 4 pillars?
Okay. So for me, what I have found is those are, if we're paying intentional attention to those 4, you got a pretty good shot of succeeding at whatever you're doing. And what I have seen in my years of doing this, all of us are pretty gifted in 1 or 2 of them, never 4. So there's a skill development somewhere that goes on. Sure. An example could be some folks might be naturally great with people, right? So they can talk to anyone, convince people of things, share a vision, that kind of thing. But they may not know a thing about a profit and loss statement, right? So they have an Achilles heel. Or a young entrepreneur may be so focused on her business that she's rocking and rolling with it and paying a lot of attention to that business, but the home life starts falling apart, the self, right? And so we're constantly trying to work on how do we create, I don't think balance is the right word. I really don't believe in work-life balance. I think that's a made-up thing. I'm also Gen X, so that's what's informing that.
It's informing that, yeah.
But I do believe in harmony between those, okay? It's getting them as close to working together as humanly possible. Mm-hmm. So to use the strategy of whack-a-mole's a little bit off, but they're never in balance. But we're always trying to give intentional attention to what's not in balance. How do we make what's naturally good better? Say you're great with people, great, let's make sure you're in front of people. But how do we shore up the things that might be blind spots, either through skill development or building a team around? Usually skill development, when it's a young entrepreneur, you don't have money to go build a team. So you got to become a jack of all trades.
Yes, I feel that way right now a lot, where I'm recording and editing and interviewing and researching and preparing I'm running all that. But I also feel like sometimes in order to become eventually successful and know how to hire out, I don't feel like it's fair for me to have not done at least all the roles. So that way I can understand what it takes in order to create the final product. And like, I feel like I'd be more respectful of what my team would eventually do and provide for me, because I've done it in the beginning and I know how hard it is to try and do all these different things. But it's showing me very quickly where I know either I have no desire to do one of those things and it's kind of like, cool, can't wait to hire that out as soon as possible. Yeah. Or one of the things where I'm like, wow, I wish I was better at that, but I know I'm not. And like, it will be great to hire the person that I know can take that. And my dad used to always tell me, you hire people that are better than you.
Absolutely.
Every time. And you want to make sure that you surround yourself with people you learn from. So I love that you're bringing that up, that it's okay to distribute the work, but being knowledgeable of your weaknesses is still crucial.
You want to distribute as fast as you can, and that you kind of want to wear that as a badge of honor, right? Nobody's great at everything.
Yeah.
And sometimes folks think they're supposed to be great at everything, and you can't. It's impossible. There's too much pressure on yourself.
No.
Everybody's got natural gifts. The key is to really get a handle on what those natural gifts are, and then how do we then get you in your highest productivity zone. Part of that is having folks around you to pick up the pieces that you're just not that good at or don't want to be doing. And that's okay.
Sure. Yeah. What was maybe of those 4, what was one of the things you realized maybe you were not as good at?
I hate selling. I'm not
no sales.
I mean, I can do it, right? Everybody's got to do it. If you got a company, you got to sell. But if I had to pick one of the 4 that is not the most fun for me, that one's probably it. I love people. I love the convergence of numbers and people, because I love human behavior. I love the complexity of human behavior.
Right.
And numbers can change behavior. So I love that. And then as I have aged, I have learned the importance of keeping a balance at home and outside of work. And when I was a young entrepreneur, I had no balance. All I wanted to do was work because I loved it.
Right. Yeah.
It's natural. It's a natural switch.
Or you're also told, or there's that trope that startups or early on entrepreneurs, that's all you do because that is your baby. That is your child. You're you're dedicating all your life, your blood, sweat, and tears and respect goes into that project because you want it to succeed. But a lot of that comes with tunnel vision sometimes. And
it can come at the expense of everything else falling apart.
Yeah.
And that is, oh man, that's such a tricky thing, because as an entrepreneur, whether you're young or old or starting your business, you do have to give it attention. You've got to give it a lot of attention, but it should not be at the expense of letting other support systems in your life, whether that's a boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, family, whatever, go into hell in a handbasket. It can't, and that happens a lot.
Yeah. Would you be willing to share maybe a mistake you might have made early on in your entrepreneurship and like how you learned from it or found a way to rebalance those 4 pillars after you realized what you had done?
I think I was the normal trap of young guy. You get in business and you just fall in love with that business. And so the gravitational pull is to the business, and you can fall in love with that as much as you can fall in love with a spouse or friends, and without somebody knocking you upside the head and going, "Hey man, blind spot over here."
Look.
You may get down that rabbit hole pretty quick. So that was, I'm Gen X, so we're used to getting up and just going to work, right? And so that's a thing. So yeah, that's something that I've gotten much better at, I think. And then choosing partners carefully is a very big thing. You know, lots of people like to partner up and things like that. And that has tremendous upside, but also can have tremendous downside. So getting good mentors around you early is a big deal. And folks that maybe have gone down a path and can create and tell you where the cliffs are is a big, is sage advice as well.
Yes.
You know, none of us really are trailblazers, right? Like most things have kind of been done. And so if you can latch on or find some guidance, which you're definitely out seeking out, for some folks to tell you, hey, there's a cliff over there, take a left turn. If someone can help you avoid a cliff, albeit you don't have to do everything alone. And there's plenty of people out there that want to be helpful.
Yes. And I think that's actually helped me a lot with my imposter syndrome, is kind of shifting that mindset that like, yes, I need to observe all these other people that have been more successful than me in this particular space. And instead of being intimidated by their success or being jealous of the fact that they've got these materialistic maybe things or whatever they're putting out on social makes it look like their life is perfect or that they're doing so much greater or better types of work. Instead of that, it's kind of like, okay, yes, they've got that, but what are they doing that's working? And what can I learn from what they've done and implement in my life that'll actually make sense for me and what I'm trying to build? Because just because they were successful in podcasting or self-development doesn't necessarily mean I want to copy them exactly. And like, I don't think you can get hung up on what everybody else is doing all the time, or else you can't.
You're right. What's that saying? Comparison is the thief of joy. Don't do that. You don't
learn from it, but like, don't feel bad if they teach you the lesson. Use it. Don't. Who cares that they've done it first?
That's right. Who cares?
Yeah.
Right. Who cares? There's plenty of room for lots of people to be successful.
Yes.
Right? And so, you learn. And man, don't get caught up in the hype of everything you see on social media. Most of it's not real.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
And so that's a thing too. And for imposter syndrome, you've got an amazing background that should propel your confidence into whatever you do.
Yes, I'm working on that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's. You should wake up every morning and look in the mirror and go, I got it. I mean, you've done hard things.
Yes.
You've done hard things. And when you've done hard things and you're not afraid of hard things, that makes the path to entrepreneurship so much easier. Lots of people are afraid of hard things, you know, and lots of people are afraid to be successful. And that kind of weighs in that imposter syndrome a little bit. I'm not a shrink, right? But you just got to plow through it. You got to, imposter syndrome is not, I don't know. I'm fortunate. I don't think I've ever felt that. And there's certainly many more people that are far more successful than me, and some aren't as successful as me. But I guess my mom raised me well in that area. I don't compare myself to folks. I just think about my own journey. Yeah. And I'd encourage you to do that same. You've got everything it takes to go rock and roll.
No, well, I appreciate that. Yeah. Thank you. Well, you did mention a bit about behavioral analysis, or at least being interested in human behavior, and you mentioned the DISC modalities. Yep. Can you talk a little bit more about DISC? I know you have an entire podcast episode dedicated to that kind of stuff, but if you could share with the listeners who may not be aware of what that option is. Like
Sure.
everybody's heard of having to take personality tests
That's
or
right.
the Enneagram, but what exactly is DISC?
And that's what it is. It's a personality assessment, and DISC is a personality assessment. There's lots of them out there. The flavor of the day for the last few years is Enneagram, right? And especially in your age bracket.
Yes.
And that is one of them. And there's multiple. Myers-Briggs, Bates-Holwig. There's lots of them out there.
I've had to take the Myers-Briggs before for jobs.
Yeah.
Stuff. Yeah.
Here's why I like DISC the most.
Okay.
When I told you I got lucky early and got part of a very small company that we were able to take public. So we were growing it very quickly. So we wanted to start doing some behavioral about who's best in this environment. Or can we get some predictability in here? So we were testing different modalities, and Myers-Briggs, Bates-Holwig. Enneagram wasn't a thing then in business. It hadn't been brought into that, and DISC just kept showing up as the most accurate, the most trustworthy, giving us the most insight for what we wanted. So I really doubled down on it and hopefully became an expert at it. And I think it's the most accurate. I really think it's just, and the other beautiful thing about DISC is it's non-judgmental. It's not measuring intelligence. It's not making predictions of if you can or can't, which some of them do. You will be good at this. You will not be. DISC doesn't do any of that. It's not measuring intelligence or motivation. It's just saying, here's how you come at things. That's it. And how you come at things is fine. It's about understanding yourself really well and then deciding, do I need to modify my behavior in the moment to be impactful and with the person that I'm with?
Sure.
That's it. And so it has been continues to be a mainstay tool for me.
What's the most, I guess, of those 4 attributes, so you have it as, I believe you said dominance and influence, steadiness, and conscientiousness.
Yes.
Out of those 4, when you run those tests, is there one where people maybe butt heads the most? Like if you have somebody that's mostly dominance based for how they interact, do they really butt heads with the conscientious people? And how do you make them?
That's a great question.
How do you make them work together once they find out what their DISC is? How do they work together best?
Yeah. So we'll just take this as an example. So have you taken? You haven't taken.
I've not. I've done Enneagram, but Enneagram I don't like because every time I take it, I get a different answer. Myers-Briggs I take, and I'm an ENTJ every time.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you that's
I don't know if that's
the knock on Enneagram. You can get a different answer every single time.
Right. Okay. Okay. And then the newest one I've been interviewing some people about is they take the human design.
Yeah. Okay.
And
I'll send you a DISC link so you can take that too.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. Yeah.
Yeah. But an example of that might be, let's say the folks that are high I's, so influential. And what that basically means in DISC is highly charismatic, sees the world in all possibilities, everything's possible, big exaggerated personalities. Then you may meet someone with a high C who's conscientious, maybe a little bit more logic-based, doubtful thinking. I bet you have some C in your profile, just likely based on what you've done in your life. Okay. Well, now here I come. If I'm a high I and I'm telling you, Amanda, we're going to fly to the moon and we're going to start doing a podcast up there and we're leaving tomorrow. Your mind's going, we don't have a spaceship. Why would we go to the moon to do that? Right. So there's natural conflict where you're thinking this guy's full of BS, where I'm thinking you're boring as heck. So there's natural conflict sitting there. That doesn't mean one of us is right or wrong. But if I know about you that, hey, you're more of a logic-based thinker, high C, a little bit more structure, my job would be to tone it down a minute. Okay. Where it'd be more like, instead of, Amanda, we're going to fly to the moon tomorrow and do a podcast, I would say something like, Amanda, for the last year, I've been studying opportunities where the podcast market's underserved. Looks like the moon is one of those. Turns out they found a colony up there. I've been researching and I have found us a pilot who's been there 100 times. Like I'd start building in safety, security reasons while we're doing it. Where if I was with another high I, I'd just say, go get in the spaceship. Yeah. They're excited just about the journey, where you're going to want to know, why are we doing this? And how are we going to do this?
Yeah. That explains a lot about who I am as a person.
Yeah.
As a little kid, I would do that to my mom. But why? Or where are we going? What's the schedule?
And that's the power of DISC. Like I've been doing it so long that probably within 5 minutes, I could draw your graph without you probably taking it.
Yeah. Right. Like she's talked for this much. She knows she's going to do this.
And so therefore, if I so choose, I can try to get on your level really fast by modifying my own behavior to speak in your language. That's the power of that tool. So it doesn't mean people can or can't work together, but people are different. And by the way, we want the family tree to fork. So oftentimes in young companies, especially, the entrepreneur will hire in likeness of herself. Sure. That works for a minute. But if we really started building something, you don't need a whole bunch of you. You need some folks to think differently.
Right.
That's the beauty of DISC. You can use that as part of the hiring process to start blending out the way people are coming at things.
Okay, so you're suggesting actually doing it during the HR
Without a
initial, not after you're hired, before we like assign you to a team, kind of a thing. Because I've always ever done it after the fact. I've never done it during
do it right
an initial
process. Right before the words you're hired. For example, let's say that you and I are building our team together, and we have a competence level, and we're interviewing someone, and their competence level is the same, right? They're both equal talent. Well, then we go back and look at our org chart and go, how's our personality structure around this organization? What might we be lacking? Let's say we're lacking a high S on the team. Competence level's the same. One of the candidates scores a high S. That might be our tipping point to hire that person, to just start blending out the team a little bit.
Okay. No, that's a smart way to do that.
Yeah.
And so you've worked with some of the, as you said, a wide variety. You started in hospitality. Now you're doing business consulting, which could branch out to any kind of industry, any kind of vertical. You've worked with people that were startups to Fortune 500s. You've been national here in the US. You've been international in your consulting as well. And I'm so curious about what exactly it is when you say a company needs to be corporate enough. You bring up this phrase on your website and in your blogs. And as I'm sure you've experienced, not every business wants to feel corporate-y, like Google and Apple always make it like so fun and free flowing, and you don't have to wear suits all the time. And there's massage chairs and game rooms, but then still your workstation. And then like I have come from corporate now in a corporate kind of hybrid place. And then I also came from a very structured suits in cubicles, 70s, probably asbestos in the ceiling kind of a place before. So I've seen it all as well. But I'm curious, what exactly do you mean when you say, or you're speaking to a company and you're trying to help them become corporate enough?
Well, it's where I came up with that is most entrepreneurs never wake up and go, I'm going to go start a business so I can be corporate.
Sure.
At the same time, without having some structure in the business, you cannot scale. And so there's a collision course between pure entrepreneurial spirit and corporate. They're on a collision course with each other. And so where I try to soften the blow and where my sweet spot is, I'm bad at lots of stuff, but I know my lane. I like to work with creative people that are basically cuckoo, whether that's musical people, whether it's architects, chefs, people that are using that side of their brain to create, where the word structure is, they don't want it. That's probably why they started their business. They don't want any structure. Mm-hmm. So I try to tiptoe into corporate enough. Like, how do we put enough structure in this business to where you can still maintain great flexibility and creativity, but scale? And I like to liken it to, when you go bowling, you can put the bumper lanes up so the ball doesn't.
I imagine you're talking and I'm envisioning that already.
That's how I like to say it. Like, I want you to be able to have some flexibility so that bowling ball can go all over the thing, but let's put up enough guardrails to where it doesn't go off a cliff. Mm-hmm. That's in a nutshell what I mean by that, right?
Yeah. And is it okay for businesses to flex that corporate level, or is it always, if you become more corporate, you should stay more corporate versus like dropping the structure back down ever, or should there be flexibility with it?
I think all of it's situational, and maybe you're more corporate on some things than others.
Sure. Okay.
Right. And that could be situational.
Yeah. All right. You give out a lot of advice, and you're a consultant for lots of different creatives or the crazies, people. And I'm super curious, what's the best advice you've ever actually received?
It was good. One of my early mentors who put me into a business, who actually put me into this small business that went public. I already had a business and I loved it, and I was very emotionally attached to it. Mm-hmm. And he sat me down and said, this is not the last thing you're going to do in your life. Don't get so emotionally wrapped up in your business, because you're going to do lots of businesses. And man, that hit me like a ton of bricks, because I was in my 20s and thought I was a big shot. I mean, I was rocking and rolling in my business, and he saw a bigger future because he'd been down that route. And so don't let your business be your identity. Yeah. And don't be so emotionally attached to it that you can't see the next thing that may be a better thing.
Right.
Love it. Love the business. Appreciate it, all that. But don't be so attached to it. It's not family. Business is not your family. Right. And so you have to have the ability to see it objectively and love it, of course, but have the ability to stop it when it needs to be stopped or move to the next thing.
Yeah. I want to pick at one of the things that you had just said now, that your business is not your family. So sometimes I've been offered jobs or been hired by other places that they want to talk about insert company name is a family.
Run.
Like they want to treat you like a family. Okay.
Run.
That's what I thought. I was like,
Run.
I don't think that's how this works, because they can.
Business is not your family. You imagine the pressure. Imagine the pressure. Hey, welcome to our new company. You're now in the family.
Right.
You don't know Cousin It. You don't know Uncle Fester.
Right.
And just think of the pressure of that. Like, business is not your family. And not that family's great, but there's a place for family and there's a place for business.
Right.
And when it's tough to be in a family business if you are not in the family.
Yes.
Okay.
Already actually in the family.
Very difficult. Very difficult to be in a family business if you're not in the family. That doesn't mean that you can't have love, respect, care for each other, great culture. It doesn't mean any of that. But it's not family. That's a lot of pressure. You can't fire Aunt Sally.
Right.
Right? Aunt Sally's with you forever. Right? You can choose how you interact. But to put the pressure on inside a business saying now we're family, you want to think of a business as a sports team, particularly NFL.
Okay.
They are the most efficient business model out there because they reward greatness. If you're kicking butt as a player, you're going to be rewarded for that, and you're probably going to be the coach's favorite. But you're the coach's favorite because you're performing. If you're not performing well, you get coached up to eventually to where you either get better or you get replaced.
Sure.
That is how performance at businesses should go. We love you. We care about you. We're going to develop you, but you're going to be held accountable for results over your personality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That actually sounds a lot like I was listening to another podcast where they were discussing the Netflix theory.
Okay.
About how
Netflix
how that CEO at the time was deciding whether or not to hire a person out of between two people, or how to decide whether or not to promote or fire a performer, and based on that. And I know one of the questions was, if knowing what you know now about this employee, would you go back to when you were originally hire them, and would you hire them again? And if the answer is yes, then you find a way to help them fix whatever mistake they're making and get them to grow and move forward with their team. And if the answer is no, then it's like time to go. Yeah. And that it isn't, Netflix should not be treated like a family. They had the very similar thought process. Yeah. But I do not run the business that I'm in now. I am just a regular employee, but I cannot imagine the pressure as well, because I've also been with managers before that would avoid making decisions like that, and it would affect the rest of us as the employees, because we could feel the tension between what needed to be done and what wasn't getting done. And it makes it harder to want to follow that team or believe in that team or feel motivated to even do your work, if you can't trust the people in charge to do what they say they're going to do to help the business grow.
Yeah. And that gets emotionally difficult when you're attached as family. And emotions are real, and people are allowed to have emotions. So trying to keep some of those boundaries by not saying we're a family.
Sure.
That's a lot of pressure. People have different ideas of what family is. And for a lot of people, the word family is a trauma trigger, right? So that word is so loaded. So love and respect and hang out with your family, but that's not what work is.
Interesting. Yeah. And you mentioned you're married and you have children now. Have any of your kids ever been interested in your business, or would you tell them, don't be a consultant?
No.
Go do what you want to do. Or do you want them to
No, I want them to find their own way. And I have 3 kids. I have a 25-year-old son. He is a first-time entrepreneur, and I'm so proud of him. I can't even stand it. And then I have a 20-year-old son who is also in college and has also started 2 different businesses now, and I'm so freaking proud of him.
That's
so
cool.
They're finding their way. And then I have a 3-year-old daughter. She hasn't started her business yet, but
I'm sure
she will.
She has lots of good examples ahead of her. Yeah.
So no, I want them to. I think my job as a dad is to arm them with, you can get out there and make it.
Right.
What I want to teach them is grit, and then help them have wings to go fly.
Yeah. No, I love that. And our dad, growing up, did very similarly. Like, he didn't try and pressure us to join. Like, there was always an internship if we wanted to come and work for a little bit and earn some money and learn how the business was run and how marketing and advertising works and whatnot. But he never put a lot of pressure to make us go in that route. And so I always, looking back on that now, I do appreciate that he let us kind of dream our own weird dreams and see what worked out for us and how it all came full circle. But I think you're right. giving your kids the chance to see you succeed is actually a better example than like trying to force them into, well, this path worked for me, so you should do it too.
Yeah. What I want to model is the reps, because the reps are pretty similar for most businesses, right? You got to get up, right? You got to put in the effort. You got to get in the repetitions. Lots of business. There's plenty of ways out there to make money. Yeah. But the mechanics behind that usually comes with grit, determination, no fear, not too much fear of failure.
Yes.
You know, able to get back up, take a punch. Everybody's going to get punched in the mouth, pivot, move on.
Right. Yeah. Learn from whatever it is that knocked you down, and try not to make that same mistake. I'm sure it's tough. So what would you say was a lesson that you wish you had known or could have learned before you started the consulting business?
Before I started consulting business, that people just think very differently, right? Like my mindset has always, like inside of those 4 pillars, folks come at those 4 things very differently. And where my natural bias is always going to be toward the people and then colliding numbers with that, people come at those different. Some might just be concerned about, I want to go surfing every Friday, self side, right? I need my 3 massages a week, or all I care about is the numbers and not the people. So having an understanding that everyone's going to come at similar things very, very differently, and having the ability to quickly get on their level is the route to success.
Right. Yeah. You can't cookie cutter the consulting offer.
And that's so interesting, because so many coaching programs or consulting programs out there are the 12-step program. Well, that is not my shtick at all. That's the corporate enough, people sells private self. Like I'm always trying to meet you where you are inside of those 4 things, in addition to your disc profile. And that's how we start crafting the relationship, versus here's the 12-step program. You're going to go through it no matter where you are in your journey.
I like that approach. It's a little more, sounds like you're willing to help people envision, what does your ideal life look like with your business? You wake up in the morning until you go to bed at night. What are you doing? What does that look like? And how can I help you get to that place?
That is right.
Make it more successful in a way that would make that life make sense.
Yep.
Because the way that person might be running their business right now might not be actually helping them get to that place.
That's right.
They think it is, but kind of like, actually.
We spend a lot of time on, every year we just went through it since this March, but in early January with everybody I work with, we sit down and we go, the question is, what is a home, when we get to the end, we get to December 31st, how do we say we hit a home run? And that's how we set our goals for the year. Like, and once we set our goals, we go, okay, what behaviors are we going to have to make these goals come to life? What are the behaviors? And so we're always focused on, after really proper goal setting, which is difficult to do the right way, but we focus then really on the behaviors. Are our behaviors matching our goals? Are behaviors matching our goals? And so, but every year we start with, what does a home run look like at the end of the year here?
And do you do a lot of your coaching? It can be virtual, or is it in
virtual
person?
or in person?
Or in person.
Either way.
Okay. Yeah. So you're flexible and you can work with pretty much anybody. Well, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to a company right now if they were struggling to thrive and they're trying to find a better way forward, the way you have, because you've worked at various companies as well, and now you work for yourself. If somebody were to come to you and try and hire you and they were struggling in particular, maybe they're like me, where they might have a lot of federal clients, and in the environment that's going on right now, it can be very scary and unpredictable, and they're worried about maybe not being able to perform the way they want to perform. What's kind of the advice you would give somebody that might be in that situation?
Everybody has transferable skill sets, right? And so even your time at the FBI, I'm sure you developed amazing set of skills that can be used in other areas. And so really and people get paralyzed by that, right? So a lot of people are really good at reinvention, but a lot of people aren't good at reinvention.
Sure.
And reinvention's a thing, right? Reinvention's a thing, to the point back where you're going to get punched in the mouth at some point. Whatever you're doing now may not work in a year. How do I take my transferable skill set or my skill sets and transfer those into the next thing?
Yeah.
And I would bet that in the government area, there's probably going to spin out a ton of consultants into regular business, but where you've gotten this great, I don't know if black and white's the right way to say it, but you've gotten this really good structure inside of that government practice. You can there are plenty of companies who need that. There are plenty of companies in the private sector who need that kind of behavior treatment, but without the skill set development, they never have access to it, right? It's the same with the entrepreneur who he or she, through their grit and determination, they get lift off, they get to a certain place just through their sheer determination. But then they can't scale because never been taught the skill set. It's a skill set.
Sure.
And everybody's got a gift. So really understanding what is my gift, how do I package that, and then how do I go tell people about it? How do I create a magnet? That's the trick.
Yeah, I love that. That's great advice. If you were, let's do the opposite spectrum. So that was for someone that already has their business and they're worried about failing. I'm in, like your sons, I'm in my early 20s. I have this great idea. I want to start my own business. What would maybe be 3 to 5 like core things? Hey, make sure you do this.
Yeah. If you can get yourself around some peers, that's really smart, whether that's in any kind of mastermind groups or somebody to go through if you can afford a coach, get a coach, right?
Sure.
But try to get one that's kind of walked in your shoes a little bit or walk the path that you're trying to walk, some kind of similar deal. But or mentors, right? Because you want to have folks that can help you clear the runway of things that you need to know, but maybe you don't need to go through the grind of learning it yourself. Somebody can just tell you, there's a cliff over there. That would be one. The second is embrace the fear, embrace it, and let the fear move you instead of paralyzing you. Right? Yeah. That's easier said than done, specifically based on disc profiles, right? Different disc profiles don't even see fear. Some are paralyzed by fear. All of it's coachable, but understanding that nervous people generally perform better. So you want to be nervous.
Okay.
Right? You want to be nervous. Think about actors or singers on stage. They all get nervous before they walk out there, and then they go kill it. Right? That's just, as long as it's not a paralyzing fear. Creating your own momentum is a big thing, especially when you're just starting out. You've got to keep your funnel wide about what you're trying to go sell to, or as you get traction, you can start narrowing that focus, but don't get too focused too soon, because you don't know who's going to write you a check. In the beginning, you want to work for just about anybody who'll pay you, right? As you start building reps and find your core expertise, then you can start narrowing your focus. I like to work with creative entrepreneurs. 25 years ago, I would tell you, I want to work with any entrepreneur.
Yeah, at all. Yeah.
Right. I know I don't know how to work in an assembly line. I know I can't teach anybody how to make anything. So I have found my lane over time, right? And then just try bunches of stuff and know that you're going to test fast, fail fast, and adjust fast.
That's a good one. I like that. Test fast, fail fast, adjust fast.
Yeah.
Do you have an example where you tried to test something and it didn't work?
I've had all kind of businesses not fail. I'm in the restaurant business. Most of them don't work.
I know you opened with, I was in the restaurant business, and I'm like, don't 75% of these fail?
Yes. You talk about a passion business. That's a passion business, right?
Yeah, my brother's a chef, and it's like, that's his dream, is to eventually, he and his wife she's a wedding planner.
Okay.
And her dream with him, they want to buy their own property and set it up so that way he could be the chef on property, and he'll set the meal plan for the wedding or the ceremonies or whatever event they're hosting, and she would be your executive planner and get your vendors and stuff like that.
Well, that's two skill sets into the same building. That's super smart.
Similar. Yeah. Well, they're same vertical industry, but two different parts of that, and then they get to live on their own property. She can have the garden. They can grow their own food for part of the menu. They want a holistic, like, one-stop shop kind of situation. And I know he's got big dreams, but sometimes it is really scary to go out on your own, and especially in that particular.
It's super daunting. Realm. I mean, you look at these big companies like Olive Garden, or the Big Fridays, whomever. They've been around forever, not because they are great chefs. It's because they have great business practices.
They scale.
Where the other side of that, chefs are highly creative people, and that's why most chef-driven restaurants don't make it. It's not because the food wasn't great. Because they don't know how to buy lettuce the right way. I'm being a little facetious, right? Conversely, we're the Red Lobsters of the world. They know how to buy lettuce the right way. Food may not be the best in the world. No harm to Red Lobster. I've eaten there many times. But that's the people, sales, profit, self, building skills in each area. So, but as it goes to restaurant business, man, that's basically a passion business, except for the very few. You're going to hit it or not, and so many things are dependent on things you can't control.
No, yeah, especially in the last few years, when COVID hit and people couldn't go to restaurants for a while.
Or to your brother's case, let's say they go open that restaurant. No matter how great he makes his specialty or whatever, that 19-year-old serving it to the guest can ruin the business just because she's in a bad mood.
He works with that right now as the executive chef for the bed and breakfast that he works at. He has to make those decisions all the time. The rotating in and out of front of the house is really difficult. And he's the back of the house manager, and he has to explain to the owner the conditions aren't working well. And this is why I had an issue in the kitchen, was because this happened. And so he's learning all these, not only his own skills and learning how to be a leader in his 20s and whatnot now. So like he's thrown into a whole new world, and having to take that on has been really impressive, just to watch him grow and like explain things to us. It's kind of like, yeah, that's what real life is. That's how that works. Like you're learning valuable skills. It's uncomfortable, and I know you don't like it, but like if you see a problem, don't let them slide it under the rug. Like
run right toward the conflict.
Yeah, it's your name, it's your brand, it's your food, and if it gets misrepresented that way, it'll ruin everything else. So
that's right.
I think he takes it very, very seriously, but that also probably feeds into a little bit to the fear of like, how do I start my own way to do this?
Yeah. Well, being nervous is okay. And one thing the restaurant business does, it teaches you so much about how to deal with people. Yeah. There's a P&L involved, so you've got to learn numbers too. It's a great little microcosm of how to go be a business person, because you touch all kinds of things. And so good for him.
You probably talk to a lot of people, but I've always been hearing about you want to find your niche, or you want to find a problem that people are having and solve for it. And that's one of a good way to make sure that your business would be successful. So I'm curious, what's the best way for somebody to try and do that kind of research now in today's day and age? Everything's digital. The best way to make sales is to capture people's attention. Really, your attention is what I'm trying to buy and market towards in order to get a product in front of you. If I wanted to start a business, what's the best way for me to research a niche and decide which niche I should go in?
Yeah, I'm not sure I know that answer unless it just hits you in the face as obvious. What I would encourage you to do is figure out what you're good at.
Okay. Yeah. No, sure.
And package that.
Okay.
Because the world needs everything. The world needs everybody's service expertise. And so whatever it is that you want to do and happen to be good at, I would try to package that and litmus test that idea to go get a client. Versus trying to hunt around, where's there a need out here? Where's there a need? Because you may find needs that you don't have any interest in or don't have any expertise in.
Sure.
I'd be packaging up all your expertise that you've learned over the course of time, and going to do something with that. That's what I would be doing if I were coaching you.
Okay.
You've got a super solid skill set that is keenly interesting, that is probably highly transferable to other businesses.
Well, we can talk about that offline, or I'll find out what your 1 hour rate is, and I'll call you for a wellness coaching experience. Justin's been telling me that too. He's like, you have so much potential. You need to get a coach, but I can't.
Yeah.
I can pay my bills right now. I gotta find another way to. You guys are not wrong. I know if I want to grow and improve, I have to invest in myself. And so I guess finding I guess sometimes for me, I'm a little paralyzed by like, there's so many people out there trying to sell to me or trying to convince me like, I know how to help you become this person, or like, I get solicited now. The show's not even that big, but I get solicited by people like, oh, I can help you grow. I can help you do all these other things. It's just going to cost you $6,000. It'll cost you X amount. Take my 3-month course or whatever. It's kind of like, I don't know you. I don't even know how you found me. And it's a little intimidating sometimes to go, I know I need to do it, but I don't know if I've always like the people that approach are the right way to go.
Well,
sometimes,
you'll go through that forever, right? You don't know when you're meeting new people. How do I vet this opportunity?
Sure.
And that's the thing. It gets easier over time, because as you grow in your professional career, your law of attraction, you're going to attract people that you trust and all that kind of stuff. In the beginning, start small. If you can't hire a coach right out of the gate, okay, go find a mastermind group that doesn't cost as much, right? Just get in the proximity approach of stuff, and that's a good way to do it too.
And I saw you are offering masterminds, correct? Yeah. You tell us a little bit about your mastermind.
Yeah, so I got we're doing 3 this year, and we're in the middle of 1 right now, and it's on situational leadership. It's a leadership skill development program from Ken Blanchard,
cool.
which I'm a Ken Blanchard channel partner still and certified in all his stuff. The next one is going to be on disc profile and human behavior. And I think that one starts in May. And then I think we have one starting in September, which is people's corporate enough, people self, profit self. So for young entrepreneurs to come start developing skill set in all 4 of those silos, and how do they interact with each other, and what are takeaway tips that I can go and start implementing right now. So
yeah, I love that. So anybody listening, if you want to deep dive into what Chris has been talking about with us today, go sign up for his mastermind.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun. Those are fun, and we cap them at 8 people, and it's a really good cohort. And
excellent.
I get a lot out of it. I get a lot. We do them in person. You can do it virtual if you want, but I far prefer it in person. But you can do virtual if you choose to, and we do it right downtown here at the Nashville City Club, which is just a few blocks from here.
Excellent. So if there's an entrepreneur in Nashville and they're interested in trying to build their network, are there specific groups that you would recommend here in town, or are there?
Yeah, well, proximity approach matters. So, I'll plug the Nashville City Club. Nashville City Club's been around since 1957. It's where all the movers and shakers come through those doors at some point, and it gives you access to people like that you may not get access to easily if you're a young person, right?
Yeah.
Like let's just say you're a young corporate developer, real estate, whatever, and you said to the City Club, hey, I need to meet someone who's been doing this for a long time. That degree of separation is 0. So that's one. If you have a good business lift and you're up and running already, there are different organizations here. There's an entrepreneur organization. There's several organizations where young entrepreneurs can go get involved. And those are very helpful, especially in the first stages of your cycle. You want to be around, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you want to be around other entrepreneurs because the highs are going to be higher, the lows are going to be lower, and it's easier to walk that path with someone who's also doing it versus a relative or a friend who may have all the best intention in the world, but they can't relate to what you're talking about.
I dealt with that a lot in the previous 10 years because nobody in my family was law enforcement at all in any kind of sense.
Yeah, right.
Everybody else was lawyers or bankers or teachers or things like that. My mom was an engineer, but and then my brother and I are the odd ones out. We went in completely different paths. Yeah.
Well, sometimes family and friends that you get unintended bad advice by accident, right? Because they're bringing their experience into helping you inform your journey as an entrepreneur. Well, if they don't know anything about being an entrepreneur, all their junk, all their nerves about it are going to come out by accident.
Right.
So go get around other people that are in the struggle.
And so I have a few other questions that I always ask all my guests, just to kind of go over the lost and found kind of topics. I'm curious, what do you want out of life, and have you found what you're looking for?
Well, I saw your show prep for that too, and remember, I'm Gen X, so like we're the most closed up society ever. Although we're trying not to be. But I will tell you that I am happy. I will tell you that, and I've got a beautiful family and beautiful kids that are doing well, and I love what I do every day. I love it. I found my nirvana pretty early in life, and that doesn't mean there aren't tough days.
Sure.
But I know what I'm supposed to be doing. Now I'm 58, so I've been doing it for a minute, right? But pretty early on, I knew I wanted to be teaching and making money at the same time. That's been good for me. So I can't remember the specific question, but I'm pretty happy. Now happy is a moment in time, right? I might be mad an hour from now.
Sure.
But my general trajectory is I'm happy, but the way I'm kind of measure that is not by stuff. I got plenty of stuff, but do my kids still want to be around me when they're adults? Yeah,
that sounds like a great way to measure success as well. That's also a question I usually ask is, how do you define success and what does that look like to you?
Yeah.
And I think for me, it kind of changes depending on the day. Like, did I have a successful day versus month, year, whatever? And I think success right now for me is still, do I feel confident that like what I did today got me a step closer to the future version of myself that I want to become? And if the answer is yes, then it's like, all right, good. Then I did what I needed to do today.
Yeah.
Or whichever. Versus I'm slowly realizing like through this process that success is not being rich. There's other versions of wealth.
Rich has more than one definition.
Yes. Rich has more than one definition. And it's not always about finance. It's not always about, am I better than my neighbor, or the keeping up with the Joneses kind of concept.
It's people, selves, profit, self. It's the balance. It's the harmony.
The harmony of that. Right? Yeah.
And what those mean to you. I could very easily go triple my income, but it would mean for me more airplanes, less time with my wife, less time with my kids, less time with my friends. You
don't want that anymore. Yeah. And I've also been learning that it's okay that priorities shift.
They're going to shift.
They're going to, and they're going to have to.
That's right.
In each different growth phase. I keep hitting this. I've never been in a studio. Yeah. They'll find that out real quick.
You're doing great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Success. Yeah. The definition of success changes, and it's very personal, and you're going to go through so many seasons in life.
Yeah.
And not all the seasons are going to feel successful.
No, absolutely not.
They're not. But you're going to learn something. Try to learn. What did I learn from this? Failure is not fatal. Don't be afraid to fail. You get back up. You're so young. You've got a long runway. Like, you go try everything when you're young. You try everything, and eventually that's that funnel, right? It will sharpen as you try things. You'll get the own ahas about that. That's where I'm supposed to be, or that's what I love doing.
Yes. Yeah.
Or that's what I'm good at doing. Some people try to do things they love but aren't any good at. Like, you hear a lot for, this is young, this is your generation. Where
follow your passion.
Follow your passion. That's horseshit. Like
okay.
Hopefully the passion and hopefully your passion and skill set collide. But if they don't, I am passionate about basketball.
Right.
I can't monetize it. I'm too short and I'm not good enough.
Sure.
I'm a really good coach. Right? I have to be passionate about that too. But passion and what you do for a living don't have to be equal to each other. Right? You have some unique gifts. You probably weren't born going, I can't wait to go be an analyst at the up. Well, you did actually pretty early. Actually, you did pretty early.
What?
But you have this skill set. You've got this massive skill set that other people don't have. You may be passionate about horseback riding. Okay.
Yeah.
Let the business afford you an opportunity to go ride the horse.
To do the fun things. Yeah. Yeah. I would love to be able to do that, to combine the passion with the rest of my life. But yeah, I guess I'm still in a place right now where I'm trying to figure out, okay, if I gave up the skill set that I thought and the passion that I thought, because I was really good at that job and I was very proud of the work that I did. And I think if I had not left, I could have still been very successful. There were opportunities to move forward, not in the position or the cases that I wanted to work, but there were places that I could have pivoted, and potentially I could have been working internationally. I could have worked at the headquarters. I could have transferred into like a supervisory management type position and been bumped up a couple of pay grades or something like that. But I had to eventually kind of decide. What kind of helped me finally make the decision to leave was that, all right, do I want to take a risk on a guaranteed career that I could have, but I'll come out of that in my late 40s, early 50s and either be completely exhausted or have nothing left, right? Like, I won't have a marriage. I won't have kids. I won't be near my family. So there may not be much to come out of there too. Yeah. There's no reward at the end of that. Or do I take a risk now and spend the next 20 years creating something that could afford me the life that in my 50s I'm able to do what I want, when I need to, kind of a thing. Yeah. And so leaving was scary, but after I made that decision, so much was taken off of me. I felt like, wow, all right, that's how I knew that this was the right thing to do, is because I'm starting to listen to my intuition. When you're an analyst in that kind of world, you're trained to work for that particular agency. So when I worked at different places, they had different things that they would be concerned about. And so you had to follow their rules or their training or use their technology that they had. You couldn't really talk to each other very well. Yeah. And so now that I'm in a place where I can do anything, sometimes it's a little intimidating to be like, oh, okay, but where do I go now? Because I used to be told all the time what to do or where to go or how to act or what to think. And being in a place now where I can do what's important for me, I've been learning how to like reconnect to who I am and what I want and trying to listen to that voice.
Lots of folks who come out of structured environments, military in particular, are not used to having to make their own decisions. So therefore, now when you're out and you're trying to make your own decisions, am I good enough? Can I do it? Should I make this? Just do it. None of us have the shit figured out. Like, just go. I don't know who I want to be when I grow up still, right? Like, it's okay.
And you're like, I'm in my 50s.
You keep pivoting. You just keep pivoting, right? And life is beautifully short and fast and open to endless possibilities. But I see folks come out of corporate all the time. I've actually coached several high-ranking military folks coming out of the military to go, how do we take your transferable skill set and do something? Because it's so structured. You don't have to use that side of your brain. So you just about feel guilty when you do, like, oh, I'm not good enough, or how do I make this? You just go. There are plenty of people in the world dumber than you. So get out there and just start doing stuff.
Yeah, I love that. I'm glad you said that. That was one of the questions I had for you too, is, if you're somebody that might have been feeling like I did the 2 years ago and you're completely lost and you need to make a change in your life, but you're really not sure where to go, what would be your advice for somebody like that? And I think that's great that you're saying that try anything and everything.
Test fast, fail fast, adjust fast.
Yeah.
Not everything's going to work. Most things aren't going to work. That's why you got to try lots of stuff, right? You look at the most successful entrepreneur. Look at Elon Musk. He's crashed plenty of space rockets.
Oh, for sure. Right? He doesn't care. His confidence is not ruined.
Keeps going. Right. But that's the case for most big time entrepreneurs. They have failed their way up. They fail their way up.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's just part of the journey.
Fail up, fail forward.
Yeah, fail forward, fail up. That's a real
Fail
thing.
often. Yeah. Excellent. I'm so glad we're telling everybody to just F and fail.
Go break something.
Yeah, go break something.
Go break something. Because sooner or later you'll learn not how to break it. Right.
Right. Yeah. Sooner or later you'll learn how to do it better than the last time.
I always try to measure what's the worst thing that could happen if none of this worked. Right. And so maybe frame yourself like that too. Like my escape hatch used to always be, if this doesn't work, I know I can go bartend anywhere.
Yes. You can go, you can get out of this. You can go back to your old job.
That's right.
I think people always worry about, do I have the right safety net available or want it all? And it's kind of like you are your own safety net.
That's right.
Like you repurpose yourself however many times you need to get where you need to go.
Bet on yourself.
Yeah. I love that. Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks,
it's been
Amanda.
such an honor and a pleasure chatting with you. And I feel more confident now already, being like, all right,
Let's go.
I'm gonna go mess this up a bunch. Great.
Good.
So what can people do if they want to work with you or they want to hear more about your content and your classes, anything that they need to do in order to catch up or connect?
I appreciate that. We're easy to find. The website is Well Coach Consulting, wellcoachconsulting.com. And then we're on all the channels, the YouTubes and Instagrams, and I think we're even on TikTok now. So we're all over the place. So, but
excellent.
We're pretty easy to find. And I wish you a ton of luck in your journey. You're gonna be just fine.
I appreciate that very much.
Thanks for having me.
Well, now that I know that you're open to creatives, I thought it was all corporate kind of clients, but yeah.
For creatives, I want to work with crazy people.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
I'll definitely be reaching back out to you. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, but all right, everybody, that's the end of our episode. I will put all of Chris's information into the show notes, mine as well. You can always reach out to me at hello@podcastforthelost.com. All of my social media will also be included in the description. And remember, wanderers are always welcome.